Hello and welcome to part 2 of this series, in which we will now add additional details to our Mr. Handy and then eventually pose him. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. Alright, so now that we've basically modelled everything that we're going to model, we can now look at doing our details. So for example, with this, we have an exhaust on our thruster, and we have 4 indentations here. So if we look down here, we can see that the exhaust appears to be a bit harder to see, but it is there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, we still have those 4 indentations. So basically we'll start with that. One thing to make note of is this appears to be between our sort of arms. So what we're going to do is, to begin, we're going to grab the shoulder and then we're going to just bring in an empty, rotate it 120 degrees because that's 1/3 of 360, and then it should give us an exact location as to where this can go. So, like I say, to begin, what we can do is Shift S, cursor toward origin, bring in an empty, go to item, and then rotate it 120 degrees, like so. The size is a bit big, so we're just going to bring the size down so it's just visible, just so it doesn't take away too much of our screen. Then, selecting this, we're going to go to Modifiers, Add Modifier, Generate Array, change it to Transform, then Object, and then we're going to put it to our empty. If you find that it's like this, that's because our object isn't at the world center, so it is sort of down here. So when it makes the next one goes to the empty, and then it basically goes up to there. So what we need to do is apply our location, and then we've got that there. So if we highlight the thruster now, we can give it 4 loop cuts here. We can bevel this out so it's about there, and then what we can do is, if we measure the amount of faces between here and here, we can see that it's 17. So if we follow that down, we've got here, and then as we can see, the other one is there. So if we do there, and then so basically we've got there to here, and then we're going to deduct 2 from either side, so it's not exactly 1/3 of the way, and then we'll just select the other part accordingly. So then what we can do with this one is the same again. So it looks like it's more so this one that we're going to start with, so all the way down here, so we'll select that, and then it's this one, so it's all the way down here, so we'll select that, so then it's 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and then we can just do this again. Okay, so 1, 2, so this one was all the way down here, 1, 2. Right, so we just need to select those ones, and same again, it's all the way down here, so it's there to all the way to there. So then again, it's 1, 2, and then 1, 2. And then if we select these other ones, and then we do Alt E, and then extrude along normals, and then we can go into about there. So now that we've done that, what we can do next is we can basically bring in this exhaust looking shape. So the issue with this is it's hard to know what's textured and what's actually modelled. So we can see that it definitely comes out and extrudes, so basically we'll make this exhaust and then we can call the thruster finished. So I'm going to bring in a cylinder, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this quite huge to begin with, because what I'm going to do is also bring in a cube, and then we're going to basically bring that up and scale it down so it's about there. We're going to inset this circle's face so it comes to about here, and then what we can do is we can basically just delete those faces and this one, and then also this one. So now if we grab these two, we can extrude them down on the Z, and then we can right click and bridge edge loops. And then with our cube, we're going to just turn off our spin tool. We want to grab this edge, that edge, that edge, and that edge. In fact, no, what we want to do first is grab this and scale it in on the X a little bit first, because if we look at this, we'll see that it looks wider towards the bottom than it does towards the top. So yeah, what we can do is grab this, and then we can bevel it in like so. And then we'll select this face, inset it, and then basically delete that. We can then just do this and then select these faces, delete them, delete that one, and then yeah, basically now what we can do is, it appears to be we need that there, so if we extrude that down on the Z, and then what we can do is loop select that and then right click and bridge edge loops, and now we have it where our circle has one of these. So if we just select that, and this appears to come out a little bit more than our circle does if we look at it again. So comes out a bit, and then we just now need to angle it so it meets our thruster. So what we can do is Control J and join those together, and then really scale them down. And then what we can do is bring it down, bring it out a little bit, and then the thinner part is towards the top, so it needs to rotate about 65 degrees apparently on the Z. And then now we need it to somewhat, in fact what might be better is if we rotate it on the X accordingly, so it's about there, and then rotate on the Z, and then if we just sort of, whoops, scale it in, move it up, and then move it out, bring it down, scale in, and then we scale down to about here, and basically yeah, so just need to scale it that a little bit more, and then what we need to do is just sort of bring it out to about there, rotate on the Z. So there's a lot of micro adjustments with this. So if we just move that down on the Z, move it in on everywhere but the Z. Okay, I think that might do it. So if we just select this, and then what we can do is select these back faces, and then we need to move them on the Z, so if you go in like that, and then basically maybe just scale it in a bit, and then that should hopefully resemble this. It's thinner towards the top, we've got a round edge, and we've got our little vents here. So then what we can do is, like the other one, we can generate an array, set it to transform, object, and then our empty. And the other thing we need to do is apply rotation, apply scale, and apply location. So now that we've got those, and then what we can do is we can save, and our thruster is basically done. Okay, so now what we can do is we can focus on the first part of our arm. So with the first part of our arm, I mean, this kind of looks like it's mostly texture, but what we can do is a couple of extrusions and insetting, and hopefully that'll just give us some detail with this. And then yeah, hopefully it will look the part. We can apply some of that detail to this part of the shoulder wheel, and hopefully it will look nice. I've looked at this armour panelling before, and I won't lie, I'll probably leave this flat and blank, because those lines They don't tend to look all that nice, if I'm honest, and it will be probably difficult for the printer to try and print it anyway. We can look at trying to make them, but I have no hopes for them, if I'm honest. So to begin with this, we'll basically just start off with the insetting of our face. It looks like we can just inset that a little bit more, and then we have an angle, so it's not a straight up extrusion that comes out. We can inset again, but weirdly enough this kind of looks like it goes in at the same time, and then we can inset one more time, and then this one is going to come out like so, and then inset, and I think that roughly looks like it. So we can go in, then it goes in really tiny, and then it looks like we basically extrude out a little bit there. So now that we've got that bit of our wheel, if we shade auto smooth, ooh, doesn't that look nice? And then the other thing that we can do is if we come to this one down here, this one looks a little different, but only slightly, and that's just extrudes in a little bit. And then what we can do is extrude in a little bit more, and then in again, and then what we can do is just move it in or out like that. Can't really see all that much of a difference there, so what we can do is if we edge loop select this and then scale it in on the X, and then there we go, that looks a bit different. And now this, we now need to bridge this so we come in between each other. So what I'm going to do is select that and get that out of the way. So what we can do is add a loop cut, I'd say about here. Yeah, that looks about right, and then we'll add another one here, and then we'll just keep that about there. And then what I want to do is, I believe it's this one, and this one. What I want to do is delete those faces, and then what we can do is loop select, extrude on the X, and then they can attach there. So now that looks like we've got our closure here. Doesn't exactly look the best, I won't lie. We're not going to get a perfect curve unless we really spend hours on this. Don't forget, this is a game asset from a AAA studio. I'm just doing this in my spare time. And then lastly, what we've got is this armor panel here. So if we Alt-H to unhide that, what we want to do is we want to scale this in, possibly everywhere but the Z, because we want it to be a part of the geometry. And then I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to make this, I believe, 6.5, maybe even 8.5, just to extend it out a little bit. Then hopefully that's formed in there, and then that's our plating. But yes, so for this, giving it that little bit of detail, that what looks like some form of vent, I would say, is if we confirm our mirror and our solidify, and then we add a loop cut here, and then scale it on the Z to be at 0, and then we bring another one in and put it to about here, I think. And then what we can do is select these vertices and then just move that down slightly, deselect those, and then bring that down slightly. We can then select all of those and get them to meet there. And basically what we're after is making these arced sort of shapes here. So like the other one, there's about 4. So if we do 4 loop cuts, and then if we do a bevel, if we do these 4 loop cuts, and then in edge mode we select these and then bevel them, and then what we need to do is this needs to be a bit gentler, as that was probably a bit too steep. That one's probably just right, so we can move that to about there. This one is just almost there. And then this one needs bringing up a little bit. And then what we can do is select these, like so. And then if we extrude in, it just kind of doesn't look all that nice, if I'm honest. Thing is, we're in clay mode or solid preview mode, whereas if we went into our render preview, our thruster looks great. This, not so much, but yeah, doesn't look amazing. I'll leave it in. If the 3D printer gets it, it gets it. If it doesn't, then I don't feel like I'll be missing out. So that's our first part of the arm done. So now we can move on to our next part. I'll probably do the shoulder next, actually. Yeah, we'll do the shoulder. So looking at our shoulder, what we've got here is we appear to have this bit a bit too steep, as it does only appear to be a little bit narrow. And I'm going to delete the entire top part and basically make a cylinder, flatten it a bit, and then make that shape. And then basically this bit on the end looks like it's basically an extrusion of that cylinder, and then it's got a bolt on top. So what I'm going to do is, like so, grab these bottom two and move them up so it's a bit thinner, and then Control L, and then bring everything down to meet there. We can move everything back up after anyway, so I'm now going to select all of that, Control L, delete faces, loop select that, delete faces, and then loop select this, and then make a face. So while we're here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to nab basically that there, and then all the way to about there. Shift D, move up on the Z, and then rotate on the Z by 90 degrees, move over on the Y, shift it up, and then drop it back down. And what I want to do is grab the topmost edge and make sure it's on connected only, and then we're just going to flatten this a little bit, basically to about there. It seems to have a nice soft drop off, so maybe to about there. And then what we need to do is just Control L, bring everything turn it off, bring everything back up, and then sort of just drop it back down. And then it looks like we may need to just do some little micro adjustments. That'll probably do it. And then what I want to do is delete this face, Control L, delete those faces, and then extrude out on the Y to about here, extrude on the Z to meet the floor, and then make a face between these two. So now what we can do is we can shorten it in so we can make this part here. So what I'm going to do is basically just select this and move that in on the Y, turn this off, Control L, and then move everything back on the Y to meet about there. I mean, it's there and a little bit forward. Okay, so I believe that this part still looks like it needs to move a bit further back to maybe about there. And then what we can do is loop select this side, face, loop select that side, face, and then select both sides and scale them on the X a little bit so they reach to about there. And then what we want to do is basically make a loop cut there, bevel this, and then what I'm going to do is ignoring this part and the bit on the bottom, what we want to do is extrude and then along normals, and then just sort of drag it forward a little bit to about there, select this edge, and then we're going to just push that back over there. So now hopefully we've got this sort of bit that comes out there, and now we just need to make what looks like a form of bolt or something on top. So what I'm going to do is basically just nab this, Shift D, move it over on the Y, move it up, rotate on the X by 90 degrees, scale it in like so, move down, and then just extrude through. And then that looks like our little shoulder design. And what we can also do while we're here is if we confirm the location of this, we can basically select that, then this, and then copy to selected, and then we'll start seeing our Mr. Handy sort of get built as time goes on. So now that we've done that, we can Control Save and look at working on the second part of our arm. So with the second part of our arm, it's kind of difficult in my opinion to find out where we can basically improve on it, because it's kind of hard to see. You as the viewer might be sat there going, just change this, but from what I can see, we've essentially got the curvature that comes up. We've got a drop that comes down here, we can make it more pronounced. It looks like this needs to be a bit thinner in reality. But yeah, other than maybe this cube part just needs rounding off basically, and then having a bit of shape towards the bottom. And maybe we can add a little grip, but that's more of a upper arm sort of thing. Yeah, I feel like we've kind of got the shape we need, it just maybe seems a bit too round. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think what we've got here is, like I say, grab here to here, and then here to here. And then what we can do is just bring that in a little bit. We were on about rounding this off, so if we bevel that a little bit, and then maybe the bottom as well. In fact, I think if anything, this has a little bit that comes down here a little bit, like so. If we look like sort of there, it looks like it sort of droops down a little bit. But yeah, other than that, I think we've kind of got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to steal this here. I'm going to Shift D and move it over on the X, P, separate selection, select this, and then join it to here. And then what I'm going to do is just loop select, bring it over to here, expand it on the X so it's just a little bit bigger. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the vertices all the way up to, probably should be here, scale them on the Z to 0, so then that can sort of sit there. And what I want to do is want to make sure that that sticks to there, and then this one can stick to here, that one can stick to there, and then that one can stick to there. And then all the way to here, we want to get them on the Y to 0, and then snap them sort of here and bring it down. And then what we've sort of got is, so this bit goes on the inside, so we can probably afford to go up to this one. So scale on the Z to 0, and then just sort of sit it there. And then from there to, what's this? This is the inside, so there to probably about here. Whoops. So if we select there, and then there, and then there, we can delete those faces. And just to make it so it looks about right, we're going to scale this to 0, move it on the Y, and then what we can do is just select there to there. For some reason it really doesn't want to grab these faces, so there to there, and then what we can do is just extrude out, right click, come out of here, auto smooth, and then this, yeah, so then hopefully this is all part of one piece, and then it just means that if we ever rotate this, we can rotate it sort of outwards and not too far inwards, otherwise this is going to collide with that, but we should be fine with that. So that's part 2 of our arm done. So if we just apply this and then Control A and then location. We applied the array for this one. Okay, so if we just select that one and then copy to selected. Oh, hold on, no, I think I just realised. So now if we select this and then that and then go to array, copy to selected, but what we need to do is we need to confirm its scale and its location. And yeah, that's now the second part of our arm done, and now we can look at doing the third part. Okay, so now we're on arm part number 3. Whey! So, we've done our little sort of edge here, so let's look at what else we might need to edit about this. So it looks like from this angle it almost comes up then down a bit and then up. So we can add that in, and then on the bottom part it looks like it sort of comes down, across, in as well, maybe with a bit of an inset face, and then we just have this little bit of shape here. We can maybe inset here. Again, it's kind of difficult really to see what is geometry and what's texture. Like, is that actually a bit that can be inset, or is that just rust? I mean, if we look at this, there is apparently a design that's there, so yeah, I'd like to think that there's something there. But anyway, we've got this sort of inset and extrude here. So yeah, let's see what we can do about this. So with my reference to my side, so this is the outside of the arm, and then yeah, oh actually, tell a lie, if we look at this we'll see that it looks like there appears to be some form of pipe or piston inside. So now that we sort of know that, we can basically, I believe it was this one we were referencing from before, where it sort of folds down. So yeah, it looks like it comes down, but it does sort of go in as well. So what we can do is add in fact, what we'll do is loop select this, pull it down, do a loop cut there, possibly. And then what we can do is, because it's got to sort of go up as well as come down, we can basically just grab these two edges and then we'll just move them in on the Y. So that now gives us our up to down business. And then what we can do is essentially grab here and here. We're going to inset this and extrude it in. And then what I'm going to do is just introduce a cylinder, scale that all the way down, and again, cool. So if we bring that in here, and then scale that in a bit more, and then just move it up, scale on the Z. And then if we just move this down a little bit, what I'm going to do is actually bring this face up a little bit, so we've got a bit of geometry here. And then again, what we're going to do is just select that, scale on the Z until it basically fills what it is we're after. And then what we can do is just scale it down a little bit. Just a lot of micro adjustments, I feel. Alright, so if we just scale this up on the Z so it goes straight through, and then we can make sure it's not coming through the bottom. So that's our up, down, and then we've got our cylinder on the edge that we don't really see. So we've modelled this bit essentially, so now we just need to model that other part, this bit here. So it looks like it comes out, down, and then in again, so we can do that. If we go into edit mode, like we say, it comes basically out here, and then I believe with this side it basically just needs to maintain the same sort of angle. And then if we add a loop cut about here, and what I actually think is if we bring this out to about here, then maybe we can afford to sort of bring these out a little bit. If we just deselect that, and then bring that out. Yeah, I'll tell you what, and then what we can do actually is select all of these and bring them in like so. Alright, so we've got a bit of a, oh yeah, so if we now just grab this and move it out to about there. Alright, so that looks like it comes out, down, and then in. So now, lastly, all we've got to do is if we sort of grab these faces and possibly this one, if we inset, and then what we can do is we can extrude out. And then one thing that we've got to try and do is we've got to line this bottom one up so it sort of goes with, it goes in line with our bit here, and then we also need to get this sort of cut in as well. So what we can do is essentially grab that, maybe move it up on the Z a bit and then bring it in on the Y. So then what we can do is grab that and just sort of move it down a bit so it meets about there. Move it on the Y. Okay, so same again, we sort of just need to get this to sort of come in to about there. And now we sort of need to grab, so it looks like we have our edge here and then it's just a little bit in. So if we just put this here and then maybe grab both of these sides and then just sort of bring it in on the Y there. And then what we've got to try and do is keep these in line, make it look like it's angled just right, so about there. And then I think that roughly gives us this. So we're coming in at this part here, which is there. It starts below this one, so that comes out here, that's down there, and then we sort of meander down, then that's sort of where it all converges, and then we come back in here. We could probably get away with actually just moving this a little bit lower. I just don't want to start intersecting geometry because then it starts becoming a mess. So now if we look at our prison marshal, for example, we've got this, and then we just now need to round off this edge like so. So what we can do is basically just grab all of this, and then if it allows, what we can do is we can just lower this to about there. Then what we can do is bring our edge in to about there. And then what we can do is just select these and then bevel them so they're nice and round. And that should basically almost look like that. And then lastly, I think what we can do is if this is on the inside, we just need to round this off here. So just do that. That's rounded, and then I believe our outside component is fine as it is, but we'll just round it off anyway. And then that's our third part of our leg done, or arm, so it's either or. So what we can do is apply location, add modifier, or we can just select one of these, slide down to array, and then copy to selected. And then if we shade smooth, yeah, doesn't look that nice. Shade flat looks fine. So yeah, now we can focus on arm part number 4. This one should be relatively quick because arm part number 4 seems to be fine, as the core component of it was getting that weird shape. We just need to bring in our indentations, or our insets and all that. So if we just get jump scared by this, it's basically, yeah, just giving it some extra geometry here and here, and then that should actually just be fine. So what we can do is, I don't believe it's mirrored, so that's cool. So I think they're both sort of different, so what we'll do is we'll do one set of insets and extrudes here. So we can insert, extrude, that looks about right, and then we inset again and extrude coming the other way, and then if we just compare that to this, very, pixelated. So what if we look down here? So yeah, it looks like it's basically just a one extrusion. This one seems to be a smaller center, whereas that one's sort of bigger. So what we'll do is we'll just come down to this one, and like I say, it seems to have quite a big sort of exterior sort of thing. So then what we can do is Alt E, extrude along normals, insets, and then this one appears to be quite small, so then it extrudes out that way. What if we auto smooth this one? Oh, doesn't that look nice? Yeah, cool. So that's basically what we've got here. So again, what we can do is apply scale, apply location, copy this, and then copy to selected. And it, not gonna lie, looks like it's starting to come together to an extent now. So now it's just arm number 5 that needs adjusting, and then it's just a matter of putting the different tools on the different areas, adjusting the eye, and then yeah, we can start looking at printing this. Okay, so with part number 5, we've basically got so yeah, we basically have our grip that comes on here, so we know that that's basically non-standard. But yeah, we've got our cylinder, maybe could be a bit shorter possibly. In comparison to this, it probably does look a bit too long. Seems almost too straggly. I think this just basically needs to be made a bit wider. So if we just increase its size there, which means we basically need to increase the size of this. And then, like I say, what we'll do is go into X-ray mode, grab all this, and then we'll just shift it up just a little bit. Maybe not that far, but maybe about there. Anyway, so what we can do is grab this back up, and yeah, so we've got our little clip, so we've got our thick sort of cylinder here, which, yeah, it looks thick, but it's also thinner than this, so yeah, I might have to change my decision and go back to making this a bit thinner. So scale on the everything but the Z and just bring that in just a tad. Okay, hopefully that's enough. Anyway, so we've got this, and then it sort of goes round sort of here, and then it progresses further down and gets this little knobbly edge. So yeah, what I'm going to do is just select both of these, and it's just going to be the same. It's just going to be bring it in, and then maybe extrude in, bring it in, then maybe bring it in again, and then we'll scale on the X and just move it out like so. Shade auto smooth. Looks pretty good, I'd say. Shaded smooth. So yeah, arm part number 5, consider that done as well. We will apply location, and what appears to be wrong with this, that'll be why. So apply scale and location. There we go. Cool. So now we just need to put our components on. Alright, components. So if we treat our sole eye as our forward facing one, then what we can do is, if we look at our references, if Codsworth looks at us, the buzzsaw is on our right, his left. It looks like the Matt Berry one in the live action one is, again, buzzsaws to his left. However, in Fallout Shelter, which I have just now realised to an extent, which mimics the one from Fallout 3 on New Vegas, it's got the flamethrower, the gripper, and then the buzzsaw instead of the weapon. Whereas this one has the gripper, the flamethrower, and the... Tell you what, if we go in a clockwise position, so clockwise, we've got the flamethrower, the buzzsaw, then the flamethrower, the gripper, the yeah, we went from the gripper, so gripper, flamethrower, gripper, plasma, weapon, gripper, buzzsaw, unknown, buzzsaw to gripper. Okay, so I guess it doesn't entirely matter which one's which. I thought there was a general everything follows the same suit, so we could do a random number generator, I suppose. Or, tell you what, we somewhat already have it answered for us. So we've got our flamethrower, so this one can belong to this arm. So that one can basically go to approximately there, I believe. And then what I'm going to do is... Nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that, bring this over on the X, and then sort of bring it up and move it over on the... Yeah, it was the X. So... about there. We're not printing it all in place, so it doesn't matter if we're massively accurate or not. So now what we can do is, if we change this to 3D cursor, we can apply the location, apply the scale, and then we just want to rotate it by 120 degrees. There we go. So now that we've done that, we can apply the rotation. And then the same again with this one, we can just bring it over on the X, bring it up on the Z, over on the X again, so we're about there. If this works, honestly, I'll be very impressed. So we can apply, we can apply scale, apply location, and now we just need to rotate it by 240, and then that puts it there. So apply our rotation, put this back to bounding box center, bring our flamethrower back, and we basically have our equipment is now sorted. Excellent. So finally we've got our eye, and then we can finally call the modelling stage done. Okay, so now that we've done all that, we can now just work on the eyes, and one of the things I first noticed was to add a bit of extra detail, we just need to round this off a bit more, and then just give it some extrusions on the eye stem and maybe make it a bit thinner, as it is a bit too blocky as we can see it. So to begin with this, I'm going to basically grab all these inside faces, like so. Oh, with face mode selected, of course. Select all of them, Control plus delete faces. Then what I'm going to do is basically select these two vertices, move them in on the Y, and I believe they also go up slightly. Then while I'm here, I'm going to do Control Shift B and basically give them a rounder edge, like so. And then basically what we've got seems to look fine, I want to say. That comes in, so basically we also need it to scale in on the X a little bit. And then if we could just maybe get these to also scale in on the X a little bit. these in, scale these in, and then what we can do is we can Control L, Alt E, extrude along normals, and then that's, I believe there's an S for an even thickness, and then we can basically just stick it there. Yes, so now we've got this definitive sharp edge, which I'm not a massive fan of. So if we do this to the other side as well, and then we'll just bevel this 1, 2, 3 times. Yeah, that looks fine. Alright, so now with this, we now need to change this. So if we do Control plus all the way to there, and then scale it on the X to make it a bit thinner. And then what I'm going to do is M and merge by distance, because when we use a spin tool, it basically creates more geometry essentially in the same place. So where's an example of where we've used the spin tool another time? Can't exactly find one, but basically yeah, I'll just show it real quick. So if we had a cube, and then we grab this edge and Shift S, cursor to selected, face mode, then if we spin it on the X by 90 degrees, if we use say 6 steps, it doesn't necessarily matter. What we've got essentially is we've got extra vertices. So yeah, you move that one, you move that one, you move that one, you move that one. So what we need to do is basically we span it 6 times. So we had the original face here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. I think we will merge 12 or give or take 2. So if we do that, there you go, we'll move 12 vertices. Now if we move that, anyway, quick lesson is now over, back to this. So what we can do now is we can basically go into edit mode, we can select all these faces, and then the same on the other side. In fact, what I might do is select them all the way up to there, and then if we select these ones as well, inset, and then we can extrude out. And that might be enough, it's just something different. So yeah, the scale's fine, we just need to change it or apply its location. And then if we do copy to selected, there we have it. We have our speaker holder just in its drab form. We do need to make a few more adjustments, such as bringing this all close to the thruster. We also need to connect it and figure out how we're going to print this and how it's going to go together. But first, what I need to do is grab essentially these faces all the way to, oh dear, all the way to there, I want to say. And then if we, oh, not that one, we want this one, this one, this one, and this one. We want to Shift D, right click, P, separate selection, turn off X-ray mode, and then we want to grab this. We want to connect it to our eye. And that's because what I want to do here is grab basically everything that's linked with this, scale it, actually no, I wanted to inset it really. Yeah, so inset it to about there, which means we can now delete that, Control L to select linked, and then like last time, extrude along normals. So hopefully what we've got here, so this will need taking out, otherwise it will be injecting our speaker basically. So if we just move that on the Y so it escapes, and then there's 2 ways to think about it with this one. If the filament is thin enough, so we can use double G to edge slide. If the filament is thin enough, I'm wondering why it's not even sliding along that. Oh, crikey. If we just select that, and then maybe, I don't know, dissolve edges. Dissolve edges is there. Okay, now can we grab this and edge slide? Yes, we can. Anyway, so now that we've done that, the thing is, if we print it like this, and then hopefully the speaker can just drop in, and if the filament is thin enough, it will basically fold out. It will have a bit of play before it will basically snap. If it does snap, we can revisit this, but I reckon this is good to print now, so if we hide that. Not sure how to feel about this. I want to say it looks fine. there we go. So we're after, I'm just going to shake that. We're after basically making this. We need to make the stand in the center. So what we can do now is basically Shift D, duplicate that. And then I want to alt scale by 0.0005. So 0.5 millimeter, that is our tolerance. And then what we can do is we can extrude this all the way down, I don't know, to, let's have a gander. So with our reference images, we always seem to have at least arms 1, 2 and 3. We tend to fold up towards arm 4. So if we go 1, 2 and 3, so if we give it a bit more play by basically coming down to about here, then what we can do is we can extrude down, loop select all of this, and then we can extrude faces along normals, and we want to give it a bit of a flared base so it doesn't easily topple over. So what's this? This is going to be, oh dear, yep, so if we just separate selection, and if we just hide that, does that hide our thruster as well? Nope. Cool. So yeah, essentially what we're doing here is we've got our stand now. We've got our empty, which everything is based on arm 1, 2, 3, 4. Equipment buzzsaw, the cradle is this, but cradle underscore thruster. Manipulator hand, shoulder, and then our stand. Cool. So, okay, this looks more of a part now. So, I'm interested to see how this will print. So, what we can do now next is basically get this set up, ready to print. Alright, so there's a couple of tweaks I want to make sure that we've got. Just before we do anything else, and it's going to be selecting all of these, and if we go into tab, we'll see that we've got some hidden items, so we need to do Alt H to bring everything back. I think this still has its mirror modifier, whereas nothing else does. As we can see, it's array, 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 and array. These are just smooth. I don't actually remember how that looked when it's auto smooth. Decent. Anyway, so now that we've got these, we want to select this. We want to select absolutely everything, and that's because we want to line this up on the Z, and then we want to move it in on the Y, so it's crept in like that. We should be fine for our flamethrower, but our buzzsaw and our manipulator arm just need to be basically coerced into moving back into their slots. It doesn't need to be exact, but basically we've got that there. That's the issue when you're looking at it from one angle. It's, yeah, and then if we just move it up, that'll do. And then the same with this one, we just need to select everything. Just need to move up on the Z a little bit, and then like before, we just need to move it so it's like so. Right, cool. So now that we can find our positive Y, I just want to select this and delete that, delete the array, delete the array, delete the array, and then, in fact, no, before we delete the array, we're going to save because we've made some critical changes. But now what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm going to delete the array, delete, 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 and delete. And the reason I'm doing that is because what I want to do is I want to change where the origin points are. So if we do Control Shift S, I'm just going to call this Mr. Handy Echo Holder 2, and we're going to overwrite that. Because what I want to do is I want to bring our origins back to this. So tab out, object set origin, origin to 3D cursor. And then if we grab this and this, Shift S, origin selected, object set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now that we've got this, what we can do is basically select all of these. We don't need to change the shoulder, so we're going to do our transform pivot point to the 3D cursor. The 3D cursor needs pointing back to the world origin. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do Shift D, right click, rotate on the Z 120 degrees. And then what we can do is exactly the same, Shift D, right click, rotate on the Z by 120 degrees. So while we're here, what we can do now is basically select this, that one and that one, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then this one is going to be origin to 3D cursor, and then like I say, same again with this, select that, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then object origin to 3D cursor. So now that we've done that, we can save our Meher too. And then now for probably the more boring part. So we now can basically hide this. What we're going to do is go to our constraints, child of, and then it's the one above, and then object child of the one above. So now if I rotate this on the X, bounding box center, there we go. So now we've got this. And then what we need to do is make that the child of this one. So if we rotate this on the X, we can sort of rotate that there, then we can rotate this in a little bit there, rotate that in, and then I believe, isn't it something like, oh dear, the origin for this one is in the wrong place, so the origin to that is there, that is there, that is there, that is there, that is there. Right, so logically this should be fine now. So let's try and mimic something here. So let's do the typical, so that needs to come out, in, out, up, up. So we've got out first, so we need to basically put it like that. And we need to fold this one quite a bit in. And then that one needs to fold out like so. This one needs to basically just go flat. That one needs to go straight up. He's basically aiming the flamethrower at himself at this point. And then this needs to rotate on the X there. How cool is that? That is cool. Yeah, so very boring, very fast. In fact, before I even do this, I'm going to make sure that I can rotate it. So if we rotate on the X, yeah, there's no such thing as the X. It's, yeah, so basically we only really had it for this one, and I won't lie, that's pretty cool. But basically, yeah, if you follow this sort of process, if you didn't... so that one has got the rotation, so rotate on the... Ooh, nice, okay, never mind, we can do this. So this has now unexpectedly become a little bit longer than we wanted, or maybe you wanted. So... yeah, this is I see, it's because that one didn't have to rotate, and it needs scaling. So if we're going to edit mode, select it, rotate on the Z by negative 120 degrees. So if we rotate it now back 120 degrees and rotate it on the X, excellent. So yeah, we'll go in reverse order, but we need to make sure that our origin is correct for this. So we need to come here, select that and that, Shift S, cursor selected, object, origin 3D cursor, and then it's the same for this one. Shift S, cursor to selected, objects origin to 3D cursor. There, top, 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 and top. Awesome. So same with this one, if we try and rotate it on the X it won't work. So what we need to do is we need to rotate on the Z by negative 240, and then now we need to rotate it back in object mode 240. So if we do this, so yeah, what we need to do is basically just shift it back into its holder. So if I do this, way, awesome. Alright, so same as before. Anyway, so now that we've got that, there isn't really much of a design with this, is there, when you think about it? They all follow the same shape. It's out, in, down a bit. This one's maybe a bit different, but then it could just be the camera angle. Yeah, they all seem to follow the same sort of design. It's a shame. If we wanted to do this properly, if we were animating it and things like that, then we'd give it an armature, but because we're not really doing that, I mean, we might do. Could revisit this in the future, just to put into some live action footage, say, but for now, what we can do is we can basically say, there you go, we're grabbing something from over here. I'm having too much fun with this project apparently, so here we go. So we are, yep. Okay, so what we can do is bring that maybe in quite a bit, and then, oh dear, we forgot to, no, that means we have to do all of that business again. You need to set inverse. So top, 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 top. Cool. So we're going to bring that in, bring that in, bring this in, and then that's just gonna be jing, and then it's gonna be jang, jing, 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 jing. Cool, and then we've got oh, this is just cool. Anyway, we have our Mr. Handy, apparently. So this is how it could look, and I'm going to save this because now we can look at 3D printing. However, I'm looking at the eyes now, and is it me? So these are quite a long egg shape, but from what I can see, and the array's still here, so we could still somewhat modify him. Is it me, or does he not seem so long? Right, where's the original one? So if we were to select this face, maybe negative, and then if we add proportional editing, if we just bring that over on the Y. That looks better, don't you agree? Right, look at that, that is long now. Maybe the lenses could stick out a little bit now. We need a bit more oomph, so... yeah, maybe not. We do, but we sort of don't need that much. Alright, that's much better. Anyway, so now we can save this and we can look at printing this. Let's see how it looks in render view. Oh yeah, doesn't that look cool? I was concerned this might not turn out so well. I was willing to even give this project up, if I'm honest. There is one thing that I've definitely forgot to add though, and that's this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If we look at all this, we've got 64 faces. So if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And basically, yeah, what we need to do is just extrude, and then we just need to, on individual origins, scale. If we just turn that off, we need to scale a little bit, and then we just need to extrude along normals, like so. Maybe scale up a little bit. And the reason for that was because we've got this little bit here. It's basically these things. They look like they just stick out and then extrude down, and that's what we've got. So we're just going to get them, get that. And then if we just extrude down like so. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so we will probably go off of this one, so we're just going to save this, and then we're going to start setting everything up to send it to the 3D printer. And that brings us to the end of part 2, in which we have added detail and posed for a bit of fun. Join me in the next episode where we will get the model prepped and printed along with the assembly.